Well, hello, dear friends. It is Friday. Woo! We made it, and I'm so excited. And as always, I like featuring the brilliance in our community. This Friday is no different than any other Friday. With us, we have Katie Nash. Katie Nash is going to share with us why you want to create your own instructional program. And she's been doing this since 2002, designing instructional programs. And she's created a number of different training programs and leadership programs of 500 Fortune 500 companies. My goodness, for 18 years. She just recently has branched off and decided to open up her business with the goal of amplifying the voices of women who are creating, by helping them create their own programs. And I am so excited to feature Katie Nash. Welcome to the program here. Katie, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on your program.
Absolutely. We've never had anyone talking about what I think is a very, very important tool that we could use as entrepreneurs to amplify our voices. Like you said, to bring a legacy for us, put together a legacy. And so, how is it that you got into instructional design anyway?
You know, that's an interesting thing. I never really wanted to become an instructional designer. I didn't really know what it was. And there's actually a book that's called The Accidental Instructional Designer, because I think a lot of us just accidentally fall into it. But I had worked retail for many years. My company that I really loved back in the past was Radio Shack. And of course, it doesn't really exist anymore. But for 10 years, I had worked in the stores, and I knew the store and how to run it. I knew how to deal with customers, help customers, and I knew the stuff. And they have a policy of promoting from within. So they promoted me into the training department, and I discovered instructional design, and it is perfect. Wow. I just absolutely I felt like I found something that fit me.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you started off with Radio Shack. Mm-hmm. And tell me, so if someone, an entrepreneur, is interested, because I hear this topic brought in through all of my circles, people are putting together online programs. And so what value do you bring to someone who wants to put together an online program?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because it is not hard to create an online program. And when I was new, I put together programs too. The quality of the programs that I put together back in 2002 versus the quality of the programs that I put together now is immense. Mm-hmm. So all those lessons that I've learned, in the almost 20 years that I've been doing this, that's a lot of the value that I bring. I've just finished a beta group with a number of beautiful women who are creating these incredible programs. It feels like I'm not helping them much. It really does, because at this point, it's just so natural. I hate to say that, I'm not helping them much. The truth is, it doesn't feel like I'm helping them much, but you can see the quality of their courses just amplify. I mean, it's just amazing. Yes. Sometimes just a quick comment about it, and they're like, oh, wow, I never saw it that way. And they're able to make small tweaks along the way that have huge implications for how they are received on the other end. Some of it, I think probably the biggest change that I can make to their programs, and actually is a kind of small thing, is I'm very, very capable of empathizing with the audience. It's something I've learned over the years. Mm-hmm. So when I'm reading content, I am able to say, okay, put yourself in the shoes of the person who's taking this training, and they're coming in here, and they're listen to what you're saying, and they're coming in here, and the thoughts that they're having in the back of their head are like, I'll give one example. So this one lady has this great content, and it's all the things that you shouldn't do because they're actually really damaging for the particular output that you want. And so, I mean, with the best intention, she's talking to them about the things that could really damage the particular outcome that they want. And so it looks like this long list, great, great content. But if you go in and you're a typical woman, you're trying to get yourself better in this particular area, you're already feeling pretty down about yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you find out all these other things now I'm feeling like an even worse of a failure and even more guilty. So small
Yes.
tweaks to that content is like, how can you switch that up in such a way that it's not only great content, but it's great content that can be received in such a way that somebody isn't shutting down emotionally.
Wow, you bring up a really good point there. I just learned recently, and this is something I'm working on myself, is
Mhm.
making sure that I can position the content in such a way that is said in a positive, way, as opposed to using words like not, never, and those small tweaks, I think, does make a big difference in the tonality
Mhm.
of what you're writing is really, really important. So when you're helping a client, are you actually helping build and write the curriculum? Are you videotaping? Are you being you're critiquing the work? What are you doing tell us a little bit more about your services.
Yeah, that's a good question. For the group program, I am basically coaching them through it. I'm not actually doing any of the work for them. So I'll present some content, like I'll present like how to create your avatars. One tip that I do, one trick that I changed recently was I have 3 avatars, not one. And that's to get out of this, and this is kind of a trail, but it just is one more thing that I do that's a little bit differently. That's
Mhm.
to get out of the very common mistake that people make, and they do a younger version of themselves. And if you do a younger version of yourself, like, well, I remember when I was back there, that's kind of good because you're empathizing. But as a white woman who was raised in Inglewood when I was a kid, you remember that part, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I could
So
have taught you. I could have
yeah,
taught you at one point.
well, I think you're probably too young. I'm probably, closer to your age. So maybe you were a couple of grades ahead of me or a couple of grades behind me, but yeah, you probably could have still schooled me. But okay, so as a white woman who comes from Inglewood, California, I'm not really going to be able to maybe relate with somebody of a different skin color, coming from a different country, coming from a different socioeconomic background. So having 3 avatars helps me spread some of that out. So
Hmm.
I forgot what the original question is because I did go.
Well, I wanted you to break down your services a little more for us. So
Yeah.
you said you have a group program,
Hmm.
and that you helping people to be able to empathize with
Hmm.
the end user, and yeah, so that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. So in my group program, I'll do a lesson on how to build your avatars. And then they'll go and they'll build their avatars and they'll share it in the group where they can get feedback from the other people in the group, or they can, be on a hot seat, or I can't do VIP with everyone because I cannot look at everything that everyone creates.
Yes.
Um, but for those people who do the VIP, I will actually look at everything they create and I'll give feedback on those particular things. But generally, just the instructions, and then you go and do it. You can share it in the program. I think sharing in the program is also a great step because you learn by doing, but you also learn by looking at what other people are doing and giving feedback. So you're learning from each other as
Mm.
well. So that's kind of how the program works. We have 8 weeks, and probably the first 4 weeks are a lot of analysis and design where you're kind of setting the stage for everything, and then the last 4 weeks are a lot of videotaping and production and post production and that sort of thing.
So are they bringing in the group? Are they bringing in video samples, for instance, for the group to get feedback to for or
People share to their level of comfort. So if somebody wants to
okay.
bring in and share a video and get that response, they can. I've actually shared some of my videos. I made a big mistake. Just on Sunday, I recorded 12 videos and I forgot, and this is such a stupid newbie mistake, but I didn't do a test run first. And so my quality of my video was not where I wanted it to be. And I could have made just a few tweaks and fixed it. But no, I just made that mistake. And I shared a sample of that with the group and reminded them that when you go and do your video, do a test video first. That will save you trouble in the long term. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Test video meaning to practice a trial one that you can look at and kind of critique before you continue on, or
see, that's such a great question. I think you just demonstrate kind of what we as women sometimes do is like a test video because surely I did something wrong. No, it was the tech. So it was no.
I see.
Do you see what you did there?
Yes, I totally
So
see what I did
common.
there. I'm the first one to tell you, Katie. I give myself three takes on every segment, 3 or 4 takes, and that's what I say.
Hmm.
But it's more like six. And I'm criticizing everyone. So I totally get that. Yes, I need you.
Yeah.
So
Let me just stop you there because we really, really, and this is one of the things that I work on. Yes, there's the whole how to make the stuff, educationally sound, instructionally sound, so that it works with the way the brain works and all that. But the other part that we end up working a lot on is confidence. Because I have one particular student who came in and she wanted to, number one, she was like, I just want to do slides and you can hear my voice. And then she was like, can I hire somebody to do the voice for me? I'm like, no, no,
wow.
the topic that you have is far too important. It's far too important to
Yes.
remove the connection. We often think in terms of, can I create good content? And good content, great content is super important. But if you do not create connection, you lose the one thing that is not duplicable. I'm not sure if that's a word, but you
We're
can find
making it.
that. What's that?
We're
We'll
gonna
make it a
make it
word.
one.
You can't be duplicated. Your content, they can probably go find it anywhere else.
Sure.
But you are unique. There's only one of you. And if you are hiding behind your slides and hiding behind your content, then you are removing the thing that really makes your program stand out.
That's a really good tip there. Really good tip. So let me ask, can you give us a couple of other good tips, as people are videotaping and creating their online platform that would really be helpful?
Sure. Another one is leave mistakes in. I like the idea that you're trying to limit yourself to 3
Wow.
mistakes because if you and I are just having a conversation very similar to how we are right now, I'm going to say a few times. I'm going to make up words as I go along, I'm going to, act kind of silly. I might do something that's wrong and we're not going to my face isn't going to flush with embarrassment. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Do you know what I mean? It's far more like having coffee with a friend when
Yes.
you leave the mistakes in. And I think the other part too, and let me just be really, really honest with this. I think we need to all, as women, drop this idea of pretending like everything's perfect with us and be more authentic and be more genuine. If you put in a perfect program, you're probably not relatable. And then you're maintaining that same ridiculous standard of perfection. So
Hmm.
for other women, I just don't
Wow.
like it.
Wow. So then I'm going to assume you're probably against things like teleprompters.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I've used teleprompters for a while. I can find when people, I don't like rules. I guess that's my rule. My rule is I don't like
Katie,
rules.
if you were in my class, you'd be in trouble all the time, Katie.
Probably. Actually, I was like the never in trouble when I was a kid. Never. But maybe that's why I don't like rules today. So
Okay.
now that I'm 52 years old, I can do whatever I want. So okay, so when you say, you probably are against teleprompters, I can think of times when you would want to use a teleprompter. If your
Mm.
course, let's say that your course is something that is, um, could be something that could be in a courthouse someday. So you're going to talk about sexual harassment, or you're going to talk about an OSHA violation, or you're going to talk about let's say it's science, so you want to make sure that the words are precise. If the precision in your wording is important, then a teleprompter can be very, very helpful. But if you're trying to connect with somebody emotionally, then reading off a teleprompter, it erases a lot of that. I actually was in part of a challenge in January, and this precious lady has a great program where she did a video every day, and it was all
Mm-hmm.
done where you could tell she was reading. There was not one mistake from it. She read with beauty. She read with smiles. She read with, it wasn't boring, but you could tell it was scripted and it didn't feel like it came from her heart, though I'll bet it did.
So then, in regards to that, do you have your clients and students use note cards, or I mean, what's the happy medium here? Because I know that there's so much information in my head that
I
I
see
want to get out.
I say bullet points, and bullet points that are specific to the outcomes that you want for that particular course. So if you have a course and you're saying the objective for this course is fill in the blank, then you want to make sure that the content that you have for that meets those particular objectives. You want to have it planned out as far as like what type of activities are you going to ask them to do. If this is a
Mhm.
digital online course, it can be a little bit more difficult to ask for the activity. But if you're not doing a series of storage and retrieval. So storage meaning you're asking them to store information. You probably know this from like education. So you're giving or lecturing, you're giving them information in some way, and then you're asking them to retrieve it in some way. Now this is a
Mhm.
little bit more difficult to do with a digital online course, but you can ask them, say that you're saying, so I know that there's situations where women tend to feel like they have to be perfectionistic in the way that they approach things. So you talk a little about perfectionism, and then you might pause and say, can you think for just a minute of maybe two examples of times when maybe perfectionism might have kept you or somebody else? And then pause and
Good.
let them
Yes.
retrieve it. So you should be doing a series of storage and retrieval in order to create those pathways in the brain. I know pathways in the brain is not a technical term, but it's certainly an easy
Sure.
to understand way to express it.
Wow. Wow. This is a powerful interview. I thank you for sharing those big tips here. Why is it that you are focused on helping women per se to amplify their voice?
Well, women are smarter than men. No kidding. So
Scratch, scratch.
women are amazing. And I think way
Yes.
too often women tend to think that what they have to share isn't valuable.
Mhm.
And I love being a part of helping to unlock the riches and the treasure that are often stored away in precious women everywhere. This is a topic that can really get me very emotional. But if you think about the number of amazing women in your life who, in small ways, they may have affected you or the people that you love, but they were very reluctant to speak to others. And how much could the world be better if the wisdom that they had gathered over the years was out there for anybody to get? Can you think of some examples of that?
Well, my mother. I'm thinking about my mom. Yeah, it does bring tears to your eyes,
Mhm.
because of the sacrifices, that sometimes, mothers and women make without complaining
Yeah.
to support their kids or others in the neighborhood, their daughters. And yet, there's so much that's unknown, even unknown about my own mom. I wish sometimes because she has passed, I wish I had a redo, because there's 1,000 questions that I wish I would have asked, because there's so much wisdom in in her, and the fact that she lived during a time when she did, in the South, and as an African American woman, I would have loved to have heard stories, and how did she, navigate life through times like that. Oh, absolutely. So I totally agree with you. Um, there is a definite richness that women bring to the table that we're so blind to.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing too. Every woman that's contacted me and has an idea for a course idea has an amazing course idea. Like mind blowing,
Hmm.
really good course idea. And I think with my very inaccurate data here, I think it's perhaps women are very reluctant to share their ideas until they have a really good one. And then they're not even sure that that one's good either. So I don't know, maybe this is a generalization, based on the beliefs that I have about women already, but I haven't had one woman come to me with an idea for a course that I thought that's dumb. So,
There you go. And I think that the process of bringing it out, and really raising the confidence of a
yeah.
woman to start and complete
Hmm.
the program is something that I'm sure that you probably extend to a lot of women, because they may have the most fantastic story and talk themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
of, finishing the course,
Yeah.
or, so what you're doing is just fantastic, just fantastic. So what are some good resources that we could use, books, websites, wherever, whatever, to help us create better courses?
Well, I brought a couple of my favorite books here.
Okay,
When you asked the
you
question,
just so happen to have.
so happen to have this ready here. So this is my number one book. I love this lady's content. She has a website. She has a TED Talk. Don't know if you can. Oh, there we go. Nancy Duarte.
Resonate.
Yeah, and she has a number of books, but Resonate is really good, and it talks about the formula, the structure of a really good, memorable talk. And it's specifically talking about talks and not courses, but these are talks that change the world. She has in here, for instance, one here that's just about the Martin Luther King Jr. speech, the I Have a Dream speech, where she has the entire speech mapped out so you can see
Wow.
what he did to make that speech work really well. She takes the entire speech and then she breaks it down so you can see the genius that happened in that speech. And then because
Wow.
she's breaking down that structure, this is something that you can use and use that structure. I use this structure after I found out about this. I've used the structure, I put it in courses, and this is the structure that I really use in courses that transform, where you're asking somebody to behave differently, to take a different value than what they had before. So that's one resource. Love that book.
By the way, the author's name is
Nancy Duarte. I can throw that name into the links, or I can just throw, not in the links, but I can throw the name into the comments after we're done.
Okay, that would be great.
This is a book by another lady named Julie Dirksen, and it's designed for how people learn. And it's just a simple instructional design book, and it breaks it down, talking very simply about how to create training based on how people learn. And then I have a book by a guy, sorry. I don't hate guys either. This is a really good book called
I don't know, Katie. Well, those comments on the dating interview.
I have my own issues, but I'll tell you what, I love my dad. And I like John Medina quite a bit. His stuff is really about how the brain works. And I've actually listened to, he has on Audible a really long, like 24-hour long lecture on series about how the brain works. But I found his stuff so helpful. Like I'll read one of these tips and I'm like, oh, I can actually use some of that. One of the things he puts in there is he talks about the dwindling, I shouldn't say dwindling, but the attention span. We talk about it being a dwindling attention span, but that's really just more for initial engagement, the hook. Once you get somebody's attention, you have about 7 minutes to keep it. And then you should be re-engaging in some way by some pull on some emotion. So that's kind of like one of the tips he has in there. As a result of that book, I started thinking about those cycles that I told you about, storage and retrieval, as being no more than 7 minutes. So
okay, if I needed to choose one out of the 3 books, which one would you suggest as a newbie?
Which one do you think? Resonate.
Well, they all seem
They're all good, but Resonate.
I think the last one.
You like the last one?
The brain and
the brain rules.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Brain Rules is really good, and they're all I don't know if they're all available. The Brain Rules is available as an audiobook, and there are resources. He has resources online that are free that are based on that book as well. And one of his chapters that he has in his Brain Rules, and he says it was a chapter he didn't want to write, and it is that men's and women's brains are different.
I believe that. Yes.
Yeah. He said he didn't want to write it. He knew it was going to be controversial, but he said the science supports it. Our brains are different.
Oh, yes. That's not a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is fascinating. I will definitely check out those books, and I'm sure the audience is they're thanking you also. So to wrap up, do you have any special comments that you would like to make, or give us a takeaway that we could use? Well, there's so much that we already have. One last comment.
Let me just encourage any of you who are thinking and contemplating about writing a course. that I believe God has given each one of us gifts, messages, we have experiences, we have talents, and the world is made a better place when we can share them appropriately. So if you have something, if you've ever even thought about, how can I use the experience that I went through? And it could be some disappointments that you went through. It doesn't necessarily mean something that was like you achieved some great thing and you want to share your story for doing that. If you struggled in something and you survived as a result of that, the world needs to hear that as well. So I encourage every single woman out there, and it doesn't have to be through me and my program, but it could be there's lots of other people who do course creation as well, although I'd be happy to help anybody. But, I like the idea of women getting their stories heard. And if I can play a part in that, that is probably the most humbling and wonderful part of what I do. I know that was really long. I hope you don't mind.
So beautiful. Now, to get in contact with you, how can we do that?
Facebook is a great place. I'm on Facebook pretty frequently, so that's probably the best place to do that for now. I do intend to put out some YouTube videos because I do want to place some content out that is more long-standing. Often with Facebook, you put something out as a video and then it's gone after a while. So I would like to put some more searchable content in YouTube eventually, but Facebook's a good place to get me.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing so much, and you went deep, and I really do appreciate that. And I think that you've encouraged the audience, especially us ladies, to continue to augment our voice, to know that we need to be heard, and to help other women climb up. That's the whole point of telling our story. And I just thank you for being here. We have to have you again.
I'm here.
In the future. I mean, this is fabulous. So I want to thank all of you for reaching out. Reach out to Katie. I'm sure Katie doesn't mind having a conversation with you, even if you have a half-baked idea. Just go ahead and reach out to her. And she's so encouraging and she's so inspirational that I know that you'll, just be ready to get started. And she's the person. She's the person to get started with. And so until next time, everyone, be blessed. I will talk to you a little bit later on. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.